Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz, and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before, and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe, and maybe check out my other social media as well. I'm on both Facebook and Twitter. All relevant links are in the description below, and of course, if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of my characters, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Finally, before I begin my Simsational story, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done. But I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with. Let's go. Today's story is from Conservationist Kaiulani of Sulani, and we're at Chapter 4. If you have not seen previous chapters and would like to catch up, there are playlists available on my channel so you can hear the entire story in chronological order. The rest of us are going to move on from where we left off last time though, so without further ado. Alejandro Varela had some serious thinking to do. A year ago, his beloved wife Dominique had died of a sudden heart attack just weeks after the birth of their son Angelo, and he had spent months grieving her death, until he met Kaiulani Lunalilo, an environmental ambassador of the Sulani Islands, and fell in love. Their whirlwind romance had caught Alejandro off guard, and now, almost without knowing it, he and his baby son had moved in with Kaiulani. But had they done the right thing? Alejandro loved his son with all his heart. When Dominique had died, little Angelo had been the only thing stopping Alejandro from trying to follow her lead into that dark, mysterious abyss that was the afterlife. Angelo had kept Alejandro's heart alive for Kaiulani to find, and Alejandro was so glad he had. But all this meant that he had to be sure that his son was not going to be disadvantaged by his father's choices. Angelo had saved him, and he owed him absolutely everything. He just had to do the right thing by his son. Unfailingly honest, Alejandro told Kaiulani his worries. He had fallen in love with her so quickly, and they had moved so fast. And although he was happier than he'd been in a long time, and he had no complaints about them and their relationship, he was worried about Angelo's effect on their relationship, and vice versa. He didn't know what Kaiulani was to Angelo, and how she really felt about him. Children were such a big commitment, and although she'd bought a crib for Angelo, did she really know what she was getting herself into? Kaiulani's response was soothing, to say the least. She was open to his concerns, yet reassuring at the same time. Unlike Alejandro, she actually had thought about all this long ago when she first commissioned the renovations to her house with the idea of moving them both in her mind. She knew it wouldn't always be easy, and she could never replace Angelo's real mother, nor did she want to, for that matter. But surely she could just be herself for him, couldn't she? Not Dominique, but Kaiulani. Alejandro was amazed by Kaiulani's calm awareness of the intricacies of her position. He had only just begun to realise the importance of doing the right thing by his son, but Kaiulani had been there long before him, already considered all the angles and decided on the right course of action. She was so thoughtful and kind. He realised, finally, that his son would be lucky to have this wonderful woman in his life, as he himself was. With the wisdom babes always share, Angelo had already realised how wonderful Kaiulani was. He'd never really known his own mother, and at Ohana Hale he had been passed around like a well-loved toy, and so really, for the first time in his little life, he was experiencing the continued, consistent care of the same woman. And although Kaiulani wasn't his mother, and she made sure that the little boy knew to call her Lani and not Mama again, she and Angelo grew a bond of their own that was just as special in its own way. Alejandro was sorry he'd ever doubted Kaiulani, but grateful at the same time, as it had led to them communicating more openly than they ever had before. If he was being honest, Alejandro still kind of felt like a hot mess emotionally after everything he'd been through in the last 2 years, and he was ever so grateful for having found someone as amazing as Kaiulani at just the right time in his life. She was so patient with him and his growth that it inspired him. With the worst of Alejandro's insecurities and worries taken care of, their little life on the Sulani island of Mua Pelam was free to resume itself in all its seemingly mundane glory. They lived a simple life there together, equally sharing the domestic chore load almost without the need to discuss it, and they were easily able to cover what bills weren't taken care of by the eco-offsets of the recent renovations, with Kaiulani's generous wages. Kaiulani was even able to begin pursuing her keen interest in fabrication, and began the process of learning how to create different sizes, shapes, and colours of candles. She dreamed of taking their little cottage by the beach entirely off-grid, and with that goal in mind, she purchased an insect farm. She hoped that one day the bugs they farmed could create enough biofuel to power whatever appliances they couldn't do without. Kaiulani also began to work in earnest on the fabrication machine she had bought herself, selling her practice items on the online barter store Plopsy. She didn't really make a lot of money from the endeavour, but that wasn't the point. She just wanted to learn and not have her efforts go entirely to waste. What little funds came from her Plopsy page, Kaiulani used to reinvest in her new hobby, buying the dyes and other materials she needed to create more and more items. Alejandro was very supportive of Kaiulani's dreams. He wasn't as passionate about the environment as she was. Was anyone? But he definitely agreed with her on everything she had to say about the matter. He loved that she encouraged him to be more motivated, and even made it easy for not just him but the entire island to have a more green eco-footprint. With the conservation initiatives she had enacted through her work as an environmental ambassador, Kaiulani had been instrumental in the enaction of green energy rebates, public recycling bins, and eco-friendly NAPs. Kaiulani definitely couldn't have done it without Alejandro's help though, as he was the one who fixed the fabrication machine, and anything else in the house, when it broke. Kaiulani may have been fabricating the eco parts, but it was Alejandro who installed them all. He was just so handy that it made no sense for Kaiulani to bother even trying, when Alejandro would have the job done perfectly in half the time it would take her to stuff it all up, and then end up needing his help anyway. Alejandro also took it upon himself to use the eco parts she had made to upgrade Kaiulani's DJ booth with a plasma display and particle generators. The work was complex, and it would have cost a fortune to have a professional do it, which was exactly why Alejandro did it for Kaiulani, for free, as a surprise. He wanted her to know how grateful he was to her for everything she'd done and been for him and his son. Kaiulani loved the DJ booth upgrade. Alejandro had never seen her so engrossed in what she did than when she made music, and he was glad to have improved the experience for her. Besides, Kaiulani had true talent, which deserved to be fostered with the very best tools of the trade. Alejandro knew she had dreamed when she was younger of being good enough to be a part-time professional DJ, and having seen her talent, he was hoping to reignite that dream. He was in awe of her work in conservation, but she deserved to be able to follow all her dreams, not just one of them. And that brings us to the end of Chapter 4 of Conservationist Kaiulani of Sulani. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. And hey, maybe think about sharing my channel with a friend. Or don't. It's your life. Anyway, bye!